How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and today I am hanging out with Diego Valenzuela. How are you, sir?
Very excited to be here, Omar. Thank you so much for having us here, for the invitation, for the space you're giving us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dude, it is my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I have so many questions for you. So we didn't prep ahead of time. I just kind of all we did was I was making sure he spoke Spanish. That's all we did behind the scenes. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you about this project and how it all got started, and just there is such a connection between comics and wrestling. Like, it never ceases to amaze me how many of my viewers, love comic books, but also have like come from a wrestling background. They either watched it when they were younger, they watch it now, and they're always asking me about Raw, and I'm like, man, I haven't caught up with wrestling in so long. But how about you? Like, wrestling and comics to you, how does this start?
They started oddly enough at around the same time, but completely unrelated on completely unrelated reasons. I think, like, probably not, because as you said, there is like a connection.
Mhm.
Something I've always said, especially to people whom I take it to lucha libre in particular, um, is that like luchadores at least in Mexico is the closest we have to real life superheroes, right? And it is something that's naturally connected to comic books. Like there's this character whose identity is hidden, and they do this crazy stuff, and you can go see them live. And there's the good guys and the bad guys, and you have your favorites, and sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, and that is something you're seeing right there, right? And so it's, if you like superheroes, and I know comic books aren't just superheroes, but I think it's a pretty important association.
Mhm.
Um, there's something to be had, some fun to be had at least with lucha libre. When it comes to wrestling, or what I maybe mistakenly call American wrestling, like WWE,
Is
AEW, all that
is, is
stuff.
how do you say it? How do you yeah, what do you call it in Mexico? Because you're in Mexico City. What do you guys
Yeah,
call
lucha. It's
lucha?
just
Okay.
lucha. Yeah, well, honestly, if you're in Mexico and you say lucha libre, the first thing you think is at the arena and the masks and whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, like the WWE is extremely popular in Mexico,
Oh,
probably because of the same thing.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it is super, super, super popular.
Okay.
So I do remember, like, when I was a kid, really, really liking. I don't think I ever went to the my first lucha libre match live until I was much older, but I do remember, like, living in Mexico City, you see the lucha libre stuff just everywhere. Like, you see it on touristic buses, and of course you see it in the city, and you see ads for matches and events and whatever. And I do remember seeing a magazine with Blue Demon on the cover, and I was like, man, that just looks so cool. I love the mask and I love the cape, and it just like a pretty badass whole regalia thing.
Mhm.
And I mean, back then there really wasn't any way to watch matches unless you went to the arena. You couldn't really get it on YouTube. I don't even think you could get it on tape, like maybe the movies, but not actual matches. Or I never got a chance to see them. But I do remember seeing it and the concept of it, and I watched some movies that I got on TV, and it was just so cool to me. Like, it was just so awesome. And more or less at the same time, I like telling this story because there is a huge gap between the when I discovered I loved both wrestling and the comics, then a huge time of my life where I actually didn't really watch much comics, and then they both came back to my life like hardcore, even professionally, which is awesome.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah.
when I was a kid, my older brother, he got the Nightfall comic, like the large one, the omnibus. And when I saw the cover, and of course I was familiar with Batman and the Superman and most of the DC characters, the benchmark DC characters.
Uh-huh.
But the one I loved the most was Bane. Like, this is so cool. Like, I read Nightfall, and I was like, man, this character is so awesome. I hope he wins. So he kind of does.
You you were rooting for Bane when most
Kind
people
of,
were
yeah.
rooting for Batman. That's awesome.
Actually, I have the mask back there. A friend of mine gave it to me. Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, I was like, oh man, this is such a cool character. And yeah, so I remember that was the point when I really got into how cool, how awesome the whole superhero universe could be, because I did see some of the 80s movies, like the Tim Burton Batman movies. I
Mhm.
think back then Batman Forever had been released, maybe not Batman and Robin. um, so I think I wasn't really in love with the characters as they were portrayed then. I was like, yeah, it's fine, I guess. Actually, I remember being scared out of my wits by the first one. The Joker just terrified me in the first Batman movie when I saw it like at like 6 years old. But then when I read the comics, I saw this whole other thing. Like it's a much larger larger universe. My brother also got the Death of Superman, which I also read, which was also kind of terrifying, honestly. And I remember there were 1,000 characters. I had no idea who they were, and even my brother didn't know who they were. So this gave me the idea of just the insane, massive scope of.
Oh, wait! I gotta interrupt you. Were you also cheering for?
I was absolutely not. And you know why? This is a story I love to tell, because like I used to have a canary, like my first pet.
Oh.
I love you. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So
I love
the instant I saw that scene, I was like, "Screw this guy! I really hope he gets his back like torn apart." I hated him.
Yeah, destroying cities.
Yeah.
Completely.
But I draw the line at the bird killing.
That's where you cross the line.
That's it for me.
Okay.
What's funny is that if it wasn't for that one page, I probably would have been okay with him. But it kind of really gives you this. It's almost like a case study of how to really set up a villain. Like hurting a dog, hurting an animal. It's like the easiest way to really make. No, I cannot. I hate this dude. I really hope Superman kills him, and guess what? He really doesn't, which kind of sucks. So the thing is that I started reading comics then, right? So I don't think I was really into reading comic books until much later in my life, until I was like maybe 20 years old. Okay. There was this huge gap. Like I'm looking at your collection back there, and it's just intimidating to me. Like that is crazy. It is awesome because I do have like a shelf with comic book, but it's just like 1 or 2 little boxes and not the whole.
I actually have Nightfall like right behind me. Right
that there. Is so awesome. Yeah, I think I see it. And what's funny is I think I still have that exact same book, like the one my brother got when I was 10 years old. I think
that's awesome.
Yeah. So eventually, when I think it was even after the MCU started, I was familiar with some of the comic book characters. I love Spider-Man. Since the first movie came out, I love the character. I really like watching the X-Men, the 90s X-Men cartoon, the Hulk X-Men, the Hulk 90s cartoon. So I did like the characters, but I didn't really read the comic books. At some point, I remember I was hanging out with some people who love comic books and incidentally also like love wrestling. And they were like, dude, have you ever read Planet Hulk? And I was like, nope. You definitely should. So I went ahead and bought the book, and I loved it. It blew my mind, especially the ending. So after that, I started like kind of really getting more into it. Like I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I did get into reading more comic books, especially my favorite characters, which are Hulk, which are Thanos. Like when I read the Thanos Quest, is probably the point I said that this is probably my favorite book of all time, my favorite comic book of all time. So yeah, this whole thing comes from, I do think there is an incredible connection, and I wouldn't be surprised if the same things that drew me into lucha libre and eventually wrestling, because wrestling, again, what we call the like WWE, I remember I really enjoyed watching at some point. I think it was a WrestleMania, and your wrestling fans could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but there was this one bit where Undertaker was like riding his motorcycle onto the stage, and Limp Bizkit is playing, and I was just like, this is what a spectacle. Okay, and honestly, I'm drawn to spectacle.
2001,
maybe. Yeah, I was a kid. It was the Undertaker's like biker character. So
well, you said Limp Bizkit. I was like, when is that popularity? And I think it like it's like 2000.
Yeah, it was. I think
3 maybe.
That album, It Was Rolling, came out at around 2001 at most. So I think it was like the peak of the popularity. And yeah, it was like, that is just so cool on so many levels, right? It's just a spectacle, and I love spectacle. I love on every piece of pop culture I ever read. I love watching like big things happen, and that is something wrestling does like very few things do, honestly. That is why WrestleMania is such a cool thing. It's just a huge spectacle, and I've never been to one. I hope to go the next year, but I feel like it should be just the crowds cheering and the larger than life characters and the fireworks and I always love that.
I was a kid and I grew up, dude, reading comics, and I was into wrestling, and I was the same way. Like, it was just an escape. And WrestleMania was like our Super Bowl. I didn't watch football. I didn't watch the World Series. Well, maybe I did a little bit. I had to watch football because my dad would disown me if I didn't watch football with him. To watch the World Cup. But wrestling was like me and my friends in our neighborhood, man. That's what we did. We'd like watch wrestling, and we in WrestleMania, we would get so hyped up for WrestleMania. When they would come to our cities, like we would drive to go see them. So I got to see like Macho Man. Macho Man was actually married to my friend's sister.
No way.
Randy, yeah, Randy Savage was actually married to my friend's sister. I never got to meet him, and I was like, John Pat, you got to call me when he comes over, man. You got to call me when he comes over. He was like, man, that's so weird, but I'm like, I don't care. I got to meet him, man. He's bigger than life, and he was like, he's okay. He's okay. Like, we were a lot younger than she was. The Miss Elizabeth, that was her name. She passed away too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My goodness, decades ago. But wrestling was a big important part of like, you know, comics. And I remember when the video games would come out and the arcades, they had them there, and they had like the wrestling games. Oh my gosh, man, it was really cool. It was life, and that in comic books when I was younger. And then eventually, you know, I left both, and I decided to be more responsible and go to college and whatever. but I did come back to comics and wrestling. I from time to time I humor like, okay, well, like, who's still wrestling that I remember, right? It's always cool to see like people that I like grew up with, like Ric Flair, show up at it. Like, I'm like, man, how old is that guy? Or some of the old guard, right? But sadly, the life expectancy of somebody that's in wrestling, it's not very long. I mean, you're talking about names like, you know, from back then, even back then, a lot of those guys are gone now. Like Undertaker's still with us and stuff. So now, how is it over there? Like the luchadores, that culture, how is that different than American wrestling? You mentioned that you had to go, like physically go somewhere to see them.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things to consider about that in Mexico in
Oh,
particular.
wait.
Yep.
That was probably WrestleMania 17 in
there we go.
2001.
Logan Wayne, there we go, 2001. Thank you so much.
Guys,
so thank you so much for that. So, right, there's two things to consider that's important to the culture of lucha libre in Mexico. One is, like something that hasn't changed really since the beginning of it, since probably the 50s or 40s, is the events. You go to the Arena Mexico or Arena Coliseo or whichever you want to go, and you watch AAA or CMLL wrestlers do their thing, and these are these large like events which are like the analog for like Raw or like the weekly shows you see for WWE. And that if you have a favorite luchador, you go watch him do his thing, and it's really awesome. The other really important part of lucha libre culture in Mexico, which is part of the reason it became so popular, were the movies. And the thing is that when you saw Tiniebla Senior or Santo or Blue Demon, you saw them like wrestling right there, right? Mm-hmm. But you also could see the movies, and you saw them fighting werewolves and vampires, and that is something that is just really awesome. And I know this is something that also exists with WWE characters where they make their appearances on Scooby-Doo or whatever, right? But this thing that the Mexican movies did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was really, really awesome because the movies are cheesy and whatever. Like one of my favorite ones even made it to a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, and it's one of my favorites. And the idea you had of I'm watching this guy wrestle some other guy in front of me, right? But maybe when this fight is over, he's going to get on his car and go fight a vampire, and that is such a cool fantasy to see, especially for a kid. And that is kind of precisely what we're bringing back with the Luchaverse comics, which are all featuring real life luchadores doing their monster hunting thing, and that is pretty much something we're trying to recapture here.
So okay, let's bring it back to the comics then. Tell me about this project that you all are working on, because it is a team effort, and what it is and how you. Well, I kind of figure how it all came together just by putting the pieces of your past, but I'd like to hear it from you. How did you get the idea of this, comic book, and what's your role in all of this?
So here's the fun part. I love talking about the what's coming and what we're doing right now for the Luchaverse, because I am right now I am the head of story worlds and the lead writer for Mass Republic. The thing is, when I got into Mass Republic, when Kevin brought me into the team, these comics already we already had those comics done. The beginning of what we're calling the catalyst. The which are, like, to put it in simple terms, 3 issues, each of them with 2 stories. The first one, which is coming out on July 17th, is called the Luchaverse Catalyst issue number 1. And it features Tinieblas Jr. and the special guest appearance by Rey Mysterio, which is a lot of fun, right? I did write I was the lead writer for the Rey Mysterio versus La Oscuridad, the TV show for Cartoon Network.
Okay.
But oddly enough, these 2 things came apart. Like, I didn't actually write the original stories for the Luchaverse. Those were written by Ivan Plaza and Marco Lopez, who did an amazing job in telling these stories for these different characters. What I did do when I came on board and started when we started thinking how we're going to launch the Luchaverse Catalyst and what's coming after, is I kind of wrote okay, imagine if the first 5 stories are the MCU phase 1, in which each one of them has the main character facing their own villain. They all take place. They are all a different genre, which is something I love. That Ivan and Marco did an amazing job with it. And of course, Kevin Kleinrock, who's a co-creator of the Luchaverse, they kind of found the perfect genre for each of these characters. Like, there's this action adventure for Rey Mysterio, and Tinieblas is more horror adjacent, and like Cadetes del Espacio is some fantasy sci-fi, and the Lucha Brothers tell more of a martial arts fantasy story, which is awesome. And the way these whole stories are so different from one another, but they are still part of one cohesive universe. It's awesome. So the challenge when I came on board was taking these 5 stories, which happen more or less simultaneously, and writing like the Avengers for these stories. Like, they come together for one climatic moment, which is the end of what we're calling the Luchaverse Catalyst. Luchaverse Catalyst is basically like a really, really big, in terms of scope, prologue for what is going to be the Luchaverse. It's something huge. The fact that we're using the suffix verse really tells you this is a very big thing. And the Catalyst is like the kickoff. So once we're done with these 3 issues, these 6 stories, then the Luchaverse proper begins with something I can't really I can't give away right now, which I'm writing and I'm extremely excited about. But it's some of the most fun things I've ever read in my life, I think.
Okay, so this is probably a pretty obvious question. Is it going to come out in Spanish first?
Oh, it's in English.
Everything's in English.
Yeah, it is in English. Like, I don't know if they're like I'm sorry, I don't have a definite answer for this. I don't know if there are plans for a Spanish version. Like, I would love to work on that. Definitely to open the possibility, but I don't think there are plans right now. If I'm wrong, I would love to kind of come back and make that clear. And I apologize for not having a definite answer right now. But for now, what we have is the English versions coming out on July.
Oh man, this is really cool. So this is like, right now it's exclusive and available in America through. So who's publishing this?
Massive. So it's you can find it on Massive Publishing already, like the first issue of Catalyst 1. You can pre-order, and even in your local comic shop, you can also pre-order.
Now, when you're doing this particular, dude, this is really cool, because you grew up watching this stuff, and now you get to write about characters. So you mentioned legends like Rey, right? How do you channel that when you're writing the stories? Have you met these?
I actually haven't, and that is like.
Oh, you need to fix that, Diego.
I absolutely need to fix it. I would love to, and I hope I will soon. Okay. I'm pretty sure I will soon.
Yeah,
but because of how things have happened in the last years, so I haven't had a chance. Even with Rey Mysterio, like we started working on the TV show many years ago, and it just launched last December and last February, I think, like half and half of the season. I haven't actually met them in person. Like, of course, the creators of the show, and of course Kevin and the other people working on Luchaverse, many of them have met them, because these are all licensed products. Like they are all part of it. They are involved in some way or another.
Okay.
We're not just kind of taking the character and writing a comic book around them. They are licensed. But I haven't actually met them, and it's been pretty easy for me, at least, because again, I didn't write the story featuring Rey Mysterio for the Luchaverse.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Cartoon Network, we did work very closely, the Viva Calavera team and myself, into developing what this fictionalized version of Rey Mysterio would be. And of course, they had a very good idea because they do personally know Rey. And we really kind of speedballed and what it would look like. And one of the most interesting things I found about this is that if you see the version of Rey Mysterio in the Luchaverse Catalyst, and you see the version of Rey Mysterio in our TV show, they are both very different, but somehow they are both extremely Rey Mysterio. They are both on brand. They both seem like a consistent version of the same character. It's something interesting to see another writer's take on the same luchador, and seeing that they both honor him in a way. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but it's something that really caught my eye when I read Ivan and Marco's idea of Rey Mysterio.
So this is okay. So we mentioned characters like Superman. We mentioned characters like the Hulk, but I know he's a character, but it's still based on a real person. Like that is his life. And when writing something like this, whether for the show or for the comic, does he, like, again, using Rey Mysterio just because I think most people are probably familiar with that name, does he have to approve it? Does he look it over and he's like, yeah, this is good? Or like, how does that work when working with somebody like that? Or is there an entity or somebody that's in charge that speaks for the client?
As a writer, I'm not that involved in the production process.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Rey is involved in one way or another. Like he does play himself in the show. He does the voice for Rey Mysterio, so every single line has to be approved by him. He wouldn't say something that he wouldn't be comfortable or he wouldn't approve of. But again, like I was saying, both are licensed products, like kind of with Rey's blessing, but not kind of with Rey's blessing. Mm-hmm. So though I am not involved in that part because again, I am a writer, I'm not a producer. I can only imagine that, yeah, he's completely involved, at least on a production level. Like I don't think I ever got again, and I am really very specifically talking about the Cartoon Network show because I did not write the Luchaverse comic for Rey Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever got like a note that no, Rey isn't happy with what this script looks like, so we need to change this and that. I don't think that ever happened. In part because the actual producers and the creators and the showrunners of the show, they are the ones kind of filtering things out and giving me kind of what I need to work with. Like I had a very clear idea of what I could do and what I couldn't do, also because of my previous experience with Cartoon Network. So yeah, it was, in that sense, it was very, very easy. Like I don't think, in my experience, any of these characters ever got in the way of what we wanted to achieve. And when I say characters, I actually meant these wrestlers, what we wanted to achieve creatively, which is also kind of a blessing, because I know there are real people with who have these stories based on themselves and who make just a nightmare for the writers and the producers. And
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the case with us. That was actually that was a blessing, honestly.
That I love hearing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about the creative team that is kicking off the book, then the Catalyst book. Who's going to be the writers? Who are the artists? And I know that much like everything else Massive does, there's going to be several covers and then eventually the collected edition. But do you know who the creative team is on the first Catalyst?
Yeah, I am very familiar with a lot of them. I don't remember the names of every single because there are several covers and they're all really cool.
Yeah.
But okay, so the story and the scripts were penned by Ivan Plaza and Marco Lopez, the first
Mm-hmm.
5 stories, which encompass the first 2 issues and the first half of the 3rd issue. I know that Javier Martin Cava, who is an amazing writer, an amazing artist. I mean, he did the cover, not only the cover, but also the art for the Lucha Brothers story, which is also one of my favorites.
Okay.
And I think Jacob Bassel, he did the lettering, which is also great. And I apologize if I'm getting some of these names wrong. And of course, Kevin Kleinrock was one of the co-creators and producer and for these stories. And for story number 6, I am the writer, and I kind of planned this story with Kevin. I know Jacob is doing the lettering, and Javier did the art as well. And it's just it's just so cool. I love the way it came out.
So this sounds like a really big deal. Oh, look at that. I just want to jump in and say my man is Jack, bro, looking like a real life superhero. I know he's talking about you. That's what I was saying. Like your favorite character is like Bane and the Hulk. I could see that.
that means a lot coming from Bruce Wayne. Thank you, man.
How many issues are you guys planning on doing first, and then to put in like a collected edition?
So what we're doing for the specifically the Catalyst are 3 issues, each coming with 2 stories.
Okay.
Like I said before, I came in as a writer on the 3rd issue for this for the final story, which is like the climax and the end of the arc. And when all these characters and stories come together and they kind of go off on their own new stories. Like think of what the Avengers did for the phase 1 of the MCU. They all come together in this one climatic moment, and then their own stories begin again, separately. And now, again, I can't give this away, but I am now working on the next big story for one of these characters, and that is the one I'm really, really excited to share with you guys. Hopefully, not too long from now.
Now, the Catalyst is what kicks it off.
Yeah,
and then after that, what is? Have you all announced the next phase?
No, we have announced that there's something much bigger coming, and a lot of different stories. Right now, we're working on the first one, which is really, really cool. And awesome. Again, Catalyst, we chose that name because it really is just the beginning. As big as it is, as epic as it is awesome to me that it's just like the start of something much, much greater.
Got you. Okay. So I have to ask this. Like, oh wait, Elon noticed something else. I see luchador mask and 2 bass guitars.
Oh no, that's an electric guitar. Like the bass reach, the black one is just an electric guitar.
Those masks. Who's your favorite luchador?
That's a hard one to answer.
I know. That's why I asked. I asked a tough question.
I would say the number one right now is the Beast Mortos. Okay. He just changed his appearance. He used to wrestle as Black Taurus, and he's just so cool. Like not only because of the whole like the mask and everything is so cool. The way he wrestles, like he's not a huge guy, but he's insanely strong. I've seen him do some huge stuff that I think like, how do you even do that? Like really, really crazy. And like the whole character and the whole costume and everything is so awesome. And I actually got to see him wrestle live in this really cool event that we used to go before me and my friends who also love lucha libre before the pandemic hit. That they put a ring in the middle of a barbecue restaurant. There's this huge warehouse-like barbecue restaurant, and there were like no seats or anything. You were just standing right there at the ring. And like when luchadores flew off the ring, they landed like right in front of you. Like I feel like you could get hurt if you weren't careful. And I got to see back then he was wrestling as Black Taurus, and I got to see him then. I took a picture with him, and he was just so cool and such an imposing presence on the ring. And I love seeing that. He might probably be my favorite one. I know that like those masks back there, they were all gifts from friends. I think none of them are from real life luchadors. Like the skull one comes from a comic book a friend of mine called Ray Mendoza did called Sol Naciente, which is incredible. And one of the characters called Hijo de Luna Calavera wears that mask, and at some point I was like, dude, I love that character.
The blue one or the black one?
The blue one. The black one is Bane's.
I was gonna say the black one looks just like
it is Bane. Yes, okay, it is. That is a Bane replica and a professionally made one. Then this one is Viva Calavera mask. It's a Katrina.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one was also custom made for me because it has room for like the long hair. Like I have really long hair right now. You can see right now.
Oh, I can see it.
And the beard. And this one was made for the Formula One, the Red Bull Formula One drivers when they came to Mexico in 2015. I used to work at Red Bull, and we got those masks made by the Viva Calavera studio, and I got it signed by two of the pilots, which is really awesome. And the black one back there is the funny story. Like we had a music festival last year called The World is a Vampire, which is led by the Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the cool thing about this is that it wasn't just the music festival. Between bands, there were lucha libre matches, and I would have loved it to see that done again this year. But it was just an incredible festival. And almost at the end of the festival, when the Smashing Pumpkins were playing, some guy I didn't know, like totally random, came and showed me that mask, and he just gave it to me. He was like, "Yeah, dude, it's awesome. Try it on, keep it." And he just took off into the sunset, which is awesome because that mask is probably worth a lot. Like, it's really, really well made.
That's awesome.
So well, yeah, I do have another collection of real life luchador masks because I kind of like really to every time I go to the arena to buy at least one. They are not in display because there's a bunch of them, but yeah, these are my favorite ones, and I love having them back then.
Okay, all right, man, let's get real though. I see Soundwave back there.
Yeah, so I
Transformers. Yes,
these two characters are characters I got the chance to play in the movies. Like I got to play Soundwave in the Bumblebee movie, and I got to play Battle Trap in the Rise of the Beasts movie last year.
The voices.
Yeah, the voice. Yeah.
Wait a second, dude. Why did we talk about that first? Okay.
Yes, to be clear, in the Latin American dub of the movie, because those
that still counts.
Still counts. Because originally it was David Sobolev and John Bailey play the characters on the
Okay, so I know that you've done some voice acting and stuff, but how did that even come about?
It was just it came out of nowhere, if I'm very honest. Like, it was never something that I really had like on my radar when I was growing up, or even when I was a professional creative. I remember thinking, like, seeing movies or whatever where I saw characters that I love, like in Beauty and the Beast. I love Beast, right? And I was like, it must be so fun to play a character like that, right? Like, these are characters you couldn't play in the real world, but to kind of embody them in voice, that must be cool. But that was pretty much as far as I took that idea. But then in 2017, I think, or 18, I was working on. I still like do some stuff, but I was working for the AI animation studios. We were doing the Villainous cartoon for Cartoon Network, and during one of the episodes, the creator calls me and he says, like, "Hey, so we have this one character we really like, and we kind of thought about you when we were doing it, and would you like to play him when we record voices?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, that sounds awesome." I didn't even see the character until I was there, like I was at the booth, and when I saw the character himself, I was like, "This is the coolest." He's like this Bane. He was actually based on Bane, and he's like a Minotaur with a gas mask with horns, and he was like kind of a gentle dad character, and I loved him so much. And it was like just one line, and I was so nervous, but I did do it, and I really thanked him. That was a lot of fun. And a couple of months later, when the episode came out, for some reason the character became extremely popular. Like, overnight, I was getting fan art, and he was like, "No, this guy is my favorite." And in a really popular show, that really meant a lot to me, and I loved it. But I never really had thought that it would really go any farther than that. I remember Alan, the creator, saying, "Yeah, so if your character ever comes back, of course you're going to play him." But that was pretty much it. So then, because of different things, I got to do some creative consulting during the dubbing sessions for Infinity War, when they were recording the Spanish versions of Infinity War. And the director, Jose Antonio Macias, who I am blessed to call a friend and a mentor, I was helping him with how to translate things and jokes and keep consistent and whatever. And he actually plays the lead character in Villainous, so we kind of already knew each other.
Okay.
And so in the end of the movie, there was this one line that hadn't had an actor assigned, and he was like, "Yeah, you know what? Just get in there." And I was like, "Holy crap!" Okay. So I was extremely nervous, like the biggest movie of all time, and I was just sitting there in the booth, and I recorded this line. And from that point on, it just kind of snowballed. I started getting more calls, and during those calls, I started getting to know more directors who cast
Mhm.
me in different parts. So I got more experience. I got a little bit better. And one way or another, I started getting a lot of characters that I felt blessed, right? So with Soundwave in particular, that was incredible to me because it
Which
came out of
which
nowhere.
which Soundwave was it? From what?
Bumblebee.
The Bumblebee movie. Okay.
Yeah, the Bumblebee movie, he has 2 lines only,
Oh,
and you can't
at
even
the very beginning.
yeah, it's at the very beginning and during a flashback halfway through the movie.
Yeah,
And
man.
that was so incredible because I didn't even know what character I was playing. Like I was called
Oh,
to play something, and when I saw the name Soundwave, I was like, "Holy shit!" And
yeah, that's huge.
something that's really fun is that when I was like recording, they already had the filters because Soundwave's voice is
Yeah.
completely yeah. So when I was talking to the director, I could hear my own voice as Soundwave. I was like, "That
Oh,
sounds so
that's
cool,
cool, dude.
yeah." So like if you hear the movie, you probably won't recognize my voice because it's so layered and filtered. But it's that is me. And
Well,
then
to be fair, Frank Welker's voice is very well hidden with the
yeah, it
filters.
is that is just how it is.
Even when we were kids, right? Like I had no idea that. It's really funny, and I want to hear about the Rise of the Beast. Was I had one of my good friends. I consider him family now. He's from Spain, and when he came over to America, he stayed with us for, oh my gosh, like a year. He studied here. And we were watching The Simpsons, and he'd only seen The Simpsons in Spanish. So he's like, "Man, these voices are so freaking weird. They don't sound anything like they're." And I was like, "Yes, but these are the original voices." He's like,
Yeah,
"I don't care. That's not my Simpsons." So to some kids in Mexico, to grown-ups in Mexico, the sound wave with your voice is their sound wave. Like, if you think about that, that is freaking cool, man.
that is something that I think about like every day. It's like I've loved Transformers for many years, and the fact that not only did I get
Man,
the
show me a
chance,
Latino that don't love Transformers.
that's kind of the thing that I've loved it, and to be a part of it in any way would have been awesome. To be a part in this kind of
Yeah.
capacity, like people now immediately associate me with that character is to me insane because I just like I love the like I love this larger than life characters and these huge evil hulking characters, and to get to play not one but two of them.
So who's the character that you played in Rise of the Beast?
So he's called Battle Trap. He's
Okay,
like
yeah.
the right hand man for the villain,
Mhm.
for Scorch. In that one, I did get to play a lot, many more lines, much more
Yeah.
memorable lines as well. And that one doesn't really have that like it doesn't really have filters. Like when I recorded the story, the movie, I was extremely excited, and then we were invited to the premiere. I was there with my fiance and the cast. And when I actually listened to it, I was like, that just sounds like that is exactly what I sound like. They didn't really filter anything. I thought there was going to be some pitch shifting or something.
Mhm.
There was just nothing. Like I used to sing in a death metal band, so I kind of got the technique to growl and talk and not make a mess of my throat. And they just left the voices I recorded it. So, and something that's also really cool is that the final line I wrote, I wish I recorded for that character is one of the most memorable moments of the movie. Like I don't want to spoil it if you guys haven't seen it, but you will remember the last battle trap scene. It was just hilarious. Like it always gets laughs in the theater. And that character is also he's new, which is also cool. Like it lets me feel like I'm closer to the character because not that many people have played him before I did.
Mhm.
David Sobolov, he has an insanely powerful voice, and he does it so beautifully in English. So it felt incredible for me to get back to do the Spanish voice, and I know a lot of people liked it. Like it's always scary to play a character that's already popular because like people can be mean, like they can be like, nah,
What?
screw
Wait,
this dude.
Diego. You just
I
say
know
the
it's
internet
bad news.
I've
Yeah.
never. Yeah. This is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Yeah, I know it's shocking, but it's true. And I know, and I was very happy to see. I also got to play Moon Knight in one of the cartoons.
Which
And
cartoon? The Mighty Avengers or
no, it was the cartoon is called Marvel's Spider-Man. It's on
Oh, okay.
Disney Plus, and I think it's the third season. There's a special episode called the Revenge of Venom or Venom's Vengeance, something like that. It's a 3 or 2 episode
Okay.
special,
And it
and
has
Moon Knight
Moon Knight.
shows up in that one.
Yeah,
And
oh man, Moon Knight's one of the coolest
and
characters.
he was one
Dude,
of my favorite characters.
dude.
When I got cast as him, I was like, holy crap, are you kidding me?
He was talking about Rise of the Beast, Transformers, Rise of the
Yeah,
Beast.
the one that came out last year. The one that's kind of Beast Wars.
The ones that kind of spins off into maybe something bigger going on.
Oh yeah.
Yo, man, but that movie had that movie. Actually, they went to Peru, which is where I'm from, right?
Yeah,
so I was excited. I'm like, oh man, we're in Peru.
I think it is the highest movie ever in Peru, like ever. It is one of the top highest movies ever. Like people in Peru really loved it. Like the representation, the way the country is shown. I've never been to Peru. I really would love to because my fiance has been there many times, and she's just like, it's like the food, the place, the people is just incredible. It was a huge movie in Peru.
That's I love hearing that. I just remember thinking, man, Transformers in Peru, and it reminded me of that one episode of Transformers when I was a kid, where Bumblebee and like the Transformers go to Peru, and it's always Cusco. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Never the city. They never go to the city, and I'm okay with that. Cusco's a lot more. It's a lot more mysterious, and it makes sense. But yeah, it's like in the cartoon where Bumblebee, like, he's crushing on like a Volkswagen that is in Peru, and I'm like, hey man, they're in my neck of the woods. That's cool.
Yeah, that is so cool.
You feel kind of special when things like that happen.
Yeah.
But man, look, this man has the coolest career. I gotta agree. That is really cool how it's all happened, man. And now people can definitely see your excitement, that you're really passionate about what you're doing and bringing all this stuff over. So this is huge. This is big, man. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you so much.
It's all coming together, and it's all starting soon. When does the first issue drop?
Right. So you will be able to buy it on July 17th. We're talking about Catalyst #1. But it is already ready for pre-order, and it's really good. And again, it's the kickoff for something huge, and it is really saying a lot that something this big and this large in scope and epic is just the beginning. I think that really says a lot of what's to come.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a couple more questions then. Were any animals harmed in the making of these comics? Like,
they better not be. Yeah. I would be so mad. No, it's I'm sure they weren't. Maybe like some half animal, half man monster gets punched in the face or something, but that's about the
gist of it. Okay, yeah. That's cool, man. I think what's really interesting for, like, you know, I'm originally from Peru, but I came to America in '87, so I was about 8 or 9 years old when I came here. And I got into wrestling. I had no idea about luchadores or anything like that because there was no internet. But I was very much like my buddy Shandasuk here. I got introduced to luchadores from Rey Mysterio, and of all places, there was an anime called what is it called? It was called Muscle in America, like the Muscle Men, but it was Kiko. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember the name of it. But it was a bunch of wrestlers, and some of the wrestlers had masks, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool."
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
the main character had like a blue suit, and sometimes
yes, and they keep it's an anime they keep bringing back too. But in America in the '80s, there were little muscle men that you would buy from like little caps. Vending machines, like little vending machines, and you collected them. Muscle was Kinnikuman. Thank you for that. Happy Mr. Dave. So that's the other way I found out. I was like, oh, there's more than one dude that dresses like that with colors. And then I think somebody in the anime had mentioned that the guy, those particular fighters were from Mexico. And I'm like, oh man. So then I kind of started putting two and two together. Again, long before the age of the internet, they could just Google something. What is a luchador, right? I'm sorry, you don't even have to go to your computer, just go on your phone. Yeah. What is a luchador? Kids these days have no idea how good they got it, man. Dude, Ilan, muchas gracias, hermano. Where is Jack Ferry, my fellow Peruvian? My introduction to Luchadora was Ray versus Psychosis when they were in the ECW.
Psychosis was just huge, yeah.
And wrestling is huge in Japan. That is so true. Jushin Thunder Liger often appeared in manga, anime, and video games. Well, like any of the fighting, I'm starting to put up my old video games in my back room here, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, man, I was really into fighting games, like a lot of them. And a lot of them had wrestlers, like a lot of Japanese wrestlers too. And it was really cool to see that.
King, that was my Halloween costume last year. Like King from Tekken is like one of my favorite characters ever.
Guy with
And
the cheetah
yeah,
mask or
he
jaguar
got
mask.
the jaguar mask and the literal luchador regalia, and he's my favorite.
Dude, that's
Like,
badass.
that's
Yeah.
literally my Halloween costume last year.
Yeah, so no matter what, like Street Fighter, like you always had wrestlers. You had like Zangief, right? No matter what, in video games or in anime, you always see, like, especially if it's fighting, you always see somebody that comes in with wrestling. So it's huge everywhere. But yeah, that was my introduction to luchadores. And then, just over time, it just kept growing and growing. I'm like, oh man, there's a whole thing. It's just really cool to listen, to hear people get excited about it. And much like the comics, the outfits and storylines are over the top and wonderful. I think that's great.
Yeah, that is exactly what I mean. It's hard if you like superheroes. It's hard not to like lucha libre in one way or another. Like, and another thing that I think is really important is I've known so many people who think lucha libre is boring or stupid or whatever until they see it live. Like once you're at the arena, it really switches the way you think of it. Once you hear everybody screaming at the luchadores and you insulting them, and you see the actual maneuvers happening right in front of you, and the music and the entrances and the whole thing, and since they sell masks inside and out, and everybody's buying one, so there's a bunch of masked people in the crowd. It is a whole thing. Like it really can change someone who is not interested in lucha libre to becoming a huge fan like overnight. It's something really, really special.
Yeah, I like hearing that, man. I only know of two people who were resurrected: Jesus and Oh, the storylines were so ridiculous and awesome in wrestling. I can't imagine what it was like to see it live as luchadores. WCW in its cruiserweight division was my introduction to Lucha Libre. Eddie Guerrero. I forgot Eddie Guerrero was.
Conan is also appearing in one of the Luchaverse issues. If you like the character, his story is just incredible.
That's what's up, man. Bringing it all back. Now, what I always like to ask creators when I have them on, like one of the last questions I ask is, what kind of words of advice would you give somebody that's trying to break it into comics as an artist, as a writer, or maybe even voice acting, or what advice would you give yourself, your younger self, that now, like, you're older now?
The good thing about this, and this is like the most important advice I can probably give, is always write something, even if it's for yourself. Always be writing something, because like if you don't write until you get hired to do it, you probably won't be very good at it when it happens, and two, it might never happen because you really, really need experience. Like I know it sounds discouraging. It really isn't, because here's the thing. Like I've written 5 novels, but you can see back here, these blue ones over here. I wrote a whole sci-fi trilogy and a massive 1,000-page novel on my own, and I wrote it during classes, and I wrote it on sleepless nights, and I wrote it for myself. I don't even think I ever pitched those stories to publishers, because for me the important part was to have it done and made and read. So once it was done, I got them edited, and I hired an excellent artist called Alvaro de Cosillo to do the cover art, so it would look as professional as possible. And I just published it myself through Amazon, and that is something you can do. And after that, the book started moving around, and people were reading it, and it was one of the most incredible things to like. It wasn't the bestseller, of course, but what the most important thing here is that even after the book wasn't really selling, it is extremely rewarding. Like, don't wait until you become a bestseller or whatever to start or keep writing. I think the best thing you can do is, if you want to write, if you want to draw, if you want to pretty much do anything, sing, be in a band, play the guitar, whatever, you have to do it by yourself, on your own, even if it's only for yourself and your friends and whatever. Because one, it does add into the resume. Like, I'm sure I've gotten work because I had these novels published, even if I published them myself. It really doesn't matter that much, because people can read them and they see this guy isn't half bad, so maybe we should get him. And also, if you keep doing it, you will become better every time you start a new story. So it is the most important thing. And the other one, which is really, really obvious, is to don't give up, because it is a harsh industry. Like comic books, publishing, pretty much everything. Voice acting is also, it can be also very, very difficult. Even though I will come back to voice acting in a minute. Just don't give up. Write it, because finishing a story it really is its own reward, and anyone who has finished one can attest to this. It really is always worth it, even if only three people read it. If one of them says, "Oh man, I love your story. I read it in one sitting, and I did some fan art," that makes the thousands of hours of writing worth it. I really, really does. When it comes to voice acting, if you want to be a voice actor, it is a harsh industry. It is very difficult to break into, but it is not difficult to actually do it and get exposure. Because, like, if you go into Twitter, into voice acting Twitter, there are millions of open voice casting calls, which you can just send auditions, and you will book some of them. Some will be paid, some will be not, but you will always enjoy it. That is the cool thing. And as far as like equipment, it really isn't that hard to get. Like this acoustic shield up here, it really, I think it was like $50, and like a good condenser microphone. It doesn't have to be that much. It doesn't necessarily mean a huge investment to get a good sounding microphone and space. And with this experience, you will get better, you will get more exposure, and eventually you will get into bigger stuff.
Now, write that down, everybody. Yeah, Bunk, this is right up your alley, man. This is wrestling, baby. This is all you. And I just want to thank you so much, man, for your time. And I think people can see how really passionate you are about this project. Don't forget, you can pre-order from your local comic book store or shop online, and coming out in July, right? The first book of Catalyst coming out in July?
July 17th, yeah.
Now, is it going to be a monthly series up until it wraps up?
I believe so. We will probably be sharing the exact release date for Catalyst #2, which is really, really good as well. I don't like playing favorites, but my favorite story of the Catalyst is probably that one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I do believe it's going to be monthly. I'm not entirely sure. We will be talking about it. So definitely follow Mass Republic Comics, and Massive Publishing on pretty much all social media except TikTok, because you will not miss these updates, and these stories really, really are worth reading. It's so good.
Awesome. How do you reduce plosives, Diego? What? How do you deal with reduce plosives? Is that a wrestling move? By the way, Vengeance of Venom episodes of Marvel Spider-Man
there you go.
Season 3.
It is Vengeance of Venom.
Dude, my guy got you, man.
Yeah, so if you have Disney Plus, you can just switch to Spanish, and you will hear me as Venom. As Moon Knight.
And if you got Rise of the Beast, you can hear him as, what is it, Breakdown? Is that who the character is? Battle Trap. In the Spanish version. So
in the Spanish version.
Well, I just want to thank you, man, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Go and check out the books. Go and see his voices. And that's it, everyone. Stay healthy and safe. Much love.
Thank you so much for being